The white runner stretched before Natasha like a promise, lined with rose petals that cost $300 and took 2 people an entire morning to arrange. 200 guests sat in neat rows, their phones already raised to capture her walk down the aisle. The string quartet played the opening notes of Pachelbel's Canon in D. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as she had planned for the past 14 months. Then Baron planted himself directly in her path and wouldn't move. "Baron, come on, baby," Natasha whispered, trying to step around her German shepherd. Her father stood beside her, already offering his arm, confusion crossing his face. But Baron moved again, blocking her completely. He didn't bark. Didn't growl. Just stood there, solid as stone, his dark eyes fixed on something at the end of the aisle where her fiancé waited. "Natasha, what's wrong?" her father asked quietly. "I don't know. He's never done this before." She tried once more to move forward, but Baron pressed against her legs, actually pushing her backward. Some of the guests were starting to notice. She could hear whispers. The music continued, building toward the moment when she should appear. Baron grabbed the hem of her dress gently in his teeth and pulled. "Baron, no." She kept her voice calm, but her heart was racing now. This wasn't like him. Baron had been through obedience training. He was calm, well-behaved, the kind of dog who stayed by her side through everything. For 3 years, he had been her constant companion, sleeping at the foot of her bed, greeting her at the door, somehow always knowing when she needed comfort. And right now he was trying to tell her something. "Maybe we should wait a minute," her father suggested. "Something's obviously bothering him." Natasha looked down the aisle. Her fiancé stood at the altar, his expression shifting from confusion to irritation. Next to him, his best man whispered something. Behind them, the officiant waited with the ceremony folder open. Baron barked once, sharp and insistent. Then he did something he had never done before. He grabbed her small beaded clutch purse from her hand, the one that matched her dress, and ran. "Baron." Natasha hiked up her dress and followed, her heels clicking on the stone pathway. She heard her father calling after her, heard the music stop, heard the collective gasp of 200 guests. But Baron was already disappearing around the corner of the venue's main building, her purse in his mouth. She found him behind the catering area, next to a door marked "Staff Only." He had dropped the purse and was pawing at something on the ground. As she got closer, she saw it was a phone. Not her phone. Someone else's. Baron picked up the phone carefully in his mouth and brought it to her, sitting down with a whine that sounded almost apologetic. "Whose phone is this?" Natasha took it from him, her hands shaking. The screen was cracked but still functional. When she tapped it, it lit up without needing a password. The owner must have been using it recently. The screen showed a text message thread. The contact name at the top said, "My future husband," with a heart emoji. Natasha's stomach dropped. She scrolled up, barely breathing. The messages went back months. Photos, videos, plans, intimate messages that made her feel sick. And every single message was between her fiancé and someone named Brianna. Brianna, her wedding planner. The woman she had trusted to make this day perfect. The woman who had smiled at her during every meeting, who had assured her that she understood exactly what Natasha wanted, who had promised that this would be the most beautiful day of her life. The woman who had been sleeping with her fiancé for 7 months. Natasha scrolled through the messages with shaking hands. There were photos of them together in hotels she recognized. Screenshots of their flight confirmations to Miami, the trip where her fiancé said he was going to a business conference. Videos that she closed immediately, unable to watch. And worse. So much worse. Messages about the wedding itself. "Can't believe she actually chose those ugly flowers," one message read. "But hey, it's her money. Just a few more months and we're free," another said. "The prenup is airtight. She gets nothing. I still can't believe she hasn't figured it out. Does she really think I'm working late that often? After today we can drop the act. 6 months of marriage, then divorce, and we take half of everything. Her daddy's money is as good as ours." Natasha stopped reading. She looked down at Baron, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes. He had known. Somehow he had known. "Good boy," she whispered. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Good boy, Baron." She could hear people calling her name. Her father appeared around the corner, followed by her maid of honor. "Natasha, what's going on?" "Everyone's waiting." She held up the phone. "Whose phone is this? Do you recognize it?" Her maid of honor, Patricia, squinted at it. "That's Brianna's phone. She dropped it earlier and I saw her looking for it. Why do you have it?" "Read this." Natasha handed her the phone and watched Patricia's face change as she scrolled through the messages. Her father took the phone next, his expression growing darker with every word. "This can't be real," Patricia said. "Brianna wouldn't. I mean, she's your wedding planner." Baron knew. Natasha bent down and wrapped her arms around her dog's neck. "He tried to stop me." He knew something was wrong. Her father's hands were clenched into fists. "Where is she? Where is he?" "Dad, wait." Natasha stood up, smoothing down her dress. Her hands had stopped shaking. Something cold and clear had settled over her, washing away the shock and leaving behind something harder, stronger. "We're going to handle this my way." She picked up her purse from where Baron had dropped it and pulled out her own phone. She took photos of every message, every photo, every piece of evidence on Brianna's phone. Then she looked at her father and her best friend. "Go back to the guests. Tell them there's a slight delay. Tell them anything you want. I'll be there in 5 minutes." "Natasha." "5 minutes, Dad. I promise." They left reluctantly, Patricia glancing back several times. When they were gone, Natasha stood there in her expensive white dress, holding 2 phones, with her German shepherd sitting loyally beside her. She thought about the past 2 years with her fiancé. The late nights he claimed were work. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way he had become distant, distracted, always on his phone. She had blamed herself, wondered what she was doing wrong, tried harder to be perfect for him. And all along he had been planning this. A marriage that would last just long enough to claim half of everything she had, everything her family had built. He didn't love her. He probably never had. But she had loved him. Or she thought she did. She loved the person she thought he was. The man who didn't exist. Natasha took a deep breath and walked back toward the ceremony space. Baron stayed right beside her, not pulling anymore, just walking calmly as if his job was done. When she reached the entrance to the garden where everyone waited, she could see her fiancé at the altar, checking his watch, clearly annoyed. Brianna stood near the back, supposedly coordinating last-minute details, her face showing just the right amount of professional concern. Natasha walked down that white runner after all. But she didn't walk to the altar. She walked straight to where Brianna stood. "Looking for this?" She held up the phone. Brianna's face went white. "That's mine. Where did you find it?" "My dog found it." "Interesting timing, don't you think?" Natasha's voice was steady, clear enough for the nearby guests to hear. "He also stopped me from making the biggest mistake of my life." "Natasha, I don't know what you think you found, but I think I found evidence of a 7-month affair with my fiancé. I think I found messages planning to scam me out of my family's money. I think I found out that my wedding planner and my future husband were laughing at me behind my back." The whispers started immediately. 200 guests, all pulling out their phones, all watching. Her fiancé started walking toward them from the altar, his face a mixture of anger and panic. "Baby, whatever she told you, it's not true. She's always been jealous." Natasha turned to face him. "I read the messages. All of them. I saw the photos. I know about Miami. I know about the prenup plan. I know everything." He reached for her arm, but Baron stepped between them, a low rumble in his throat. "You need to calm down," her fiancé said, but his voice was shaking now. "We can talk about this privately." "No." Natasha's voice rang out across the garden. "We're done talking. The wedding is off. Everyone here deserves to know why. My fiancé and my wedding planner have been having an affair. They planned this entire marriage as a con to take my family's money." She pulled out her own phone and held it up. "I have all the evidence. Every message. Every photo. And my lawyer will be receiving copies first thing Monday morning." The garden erupted. Guests were standing, talking, filming everything. Her father appeared beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Patricia was there too, glaring at Brianna and her ex-fiancé with pure fury. Brianna was crying now, mascara running down her face. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We didn't mean to hurt you. But you did plan to steal from me. You did plan to laugh at me. You did plan to make a fool out of me." Natasha shook her head. "The only thing that stopped you was my dog." She looked around at all the guests, at the elaborate decorations, at the cake she would never cut, at the future she would never have. And she felt something unexpected. Relief. "I'm sorry you all came here for nothing," she said loudly. "Please stay and enjoy the food in the open bar. It's all paid for. Consider it a celebration of me not making a terrible mistake." She turned to her father. "Can you handle the rest? I need to get out of here." "Of course, sweetheart. Where are you going?" "Home. To pack." To start over. She looked down at Baron, who gazed up at her with complete trust and loyalty. With the only one here who actually loves me. Natasha walked out of her own wedding with her head high, her dog by her side, and her future suddenly wide open. Behind her, she could hear her ex-fiancé trying to explain himself to increasingly hostile guests. She could hear Brianna sobbing. She could hear the complete destruction of the careful plan they had built. And she didn't look back once. The hotel room was too quiet. Natasha sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing her wedding dress, scrolling through the photos she had taken of Brianna's phone. Baron lay at her feet, his head resting on her shoes as if he was afraid she might disappear. She had told her father she was going home, but she couldn't face her apartment yet. That was the place she had shared with her fiancé. His clothes were still in the closet. His coffee mug was probably still in the sink from this morning when he kissed her goodbye and told her the next time he saw her, she would be his wife. All lies. So she had driven to a hotel instead, checked in under her mother's maiden name, and locked herself in a room where she could finally let herself feel everything she had been holding back. But the tears wouldn't come. She felt numb, frozen, like she was watching someone else's life fall apart instead of her own. Her phone buzzed. Text messages were flooding in. Friends asking what happened. Relatives confused about why the wedding ended. A few people who had seen her announcement and wanted to know if she was okay. She ignored all of them except one. Patricia had texted, "I'm outside your hotel room. Let me in." Natasha opened the door. Patricia stood there with 2 suitcases and a bag of takeout food. "How did you know where I was?" "I followed you." "Don't be mad." Patricia pushed past her into the room and set everything down. "I brought you clothes, toiletries, and Chinese food. Also wine. A lot of wine. I can't drink. I need to think clearly." "Then don't drink. But I'm staying here tonight whether you like it or not." Patricia started unpacking the food, arranging containers on the small desk. "Your dad is handling everything at the venue. Most people left already. A few stayed for the free bar, but honestly, the drama was the main entertainment." Natasha sat back down on the bed. "What did he do?" "My ex-fiancé? Tried to convince everyone that you misunderstood. Said the messages were taken out of context. Nobody believed him, especially after 3 of his groomsmen confirmed that they knew about the affair and thought it was wrong but didn't know how to tell you." Patricia handed her a container of fried rice. "Eat something. You haven't eaten all day." "I'm not hungry." "Natasha, you need to eat." She took the container but didn't open it. "Did you know?" "Did anyone know besides his groomsmen?" "No. I swear. If I had any idea, I would have told you immediately. You know that." Patricia sat down beside her. Brianna played everyone. She was so professional, so helpful. She had us all fooled. Natasha thought about all the meetings with Brianna. The hours spent discussing flower arrangements and seating charts. The way Brianna had smiled and nodded and pretended to care about making Natasha's day perfect. She knew exactly what she was doing, Natasha said quietly. She had access to everything. My budget. My family information. She knew how much money was involved. That's why he hired her specifically as our wedding planner. It gave them an excuse to be in constant contact. That's so calculated. So cold. Patricia shook her head. How did Baron know? That's what I can't figure out. How did your dog know? Dogs can sense things. They pick up on stress hormones, on behavioral changes. He probably noticed that my fiancé acted differently around Brianna. Or maybe he smelled her perfume on him too many times. Natasha reached down and stroked Baron's head. Whatever it was, he tried to warn me. I should have paid attention sooner. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself. I'm not. I'm just stating facts. Natasha finally opened the container and took a small bite. I miss so many signs. The late nights. The phone calls he took in another room. The way he started criticizing little things about me like he was trying to make me feel insecure. That's what manipulators do. They gaslight you into thinking you're the problem so you don't notice what they're really doing. Natasha's phone rang. Her ex-fiancé's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Patricia said immediately. But Natasha answered. She put it on speaker and set it on the bed between them. Natasha, thank God. We need to talk. This is all a huge misunderstanding. No, it's not. Brianna is lying to save herself. Those messages aren't what they look like. There are photos, videos, months of evidence. His voice changed, becoming harder. You're making a mistake. You're embarrassing both of us in front of everyone we know. If you would just calm down and think rationally. I am thinking rationally. That's the problem. I'm finally seeing everything clearly. Everything we built together, you're just throwing it away over some messages? Do you know how crazy that sounds? Natasha felt a spike of anger, the first real emotion since finding the phone. Crazy? You planned to marry me just to divorce me and take my family's money. You had an affair for 7 months. You made me feel like I was losing my mind when I questioned why you were always working late. And I'm the one who sounds crazy? I never meant for any of this to happen. Brianna came on to me. It was a mistake. A 7-month mistake? A mistake that included planning to scam me? Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, Natasha said. Don't call me again. My lawyer will be in touch about recovering the money spent on the wedding and any other shared expenses. If you contact me directly, I'll consider it harassment. You can't do this. The prenup. The prenup doesn't matter because there's no marriage. You get nothing. Goodbye. She hung up and immediately blocked his number. Then she went through her contacts and blocked Brianna's number too. Patricia watched her with something like admiration. That was pretty solid. I should have done it at the venue. I should have called the police and had them both arrested for fraud. Can you actually do that? I don't know. But my father's lawyer will figure it out. Natasha set her phone down and looked at the wedding dress pooled around her. I need to get out of this dress. Patricia helped her undress, carefully hanging the gown in the closet. Natasha changed into the comfortable clothes her friend had brought, soft pants and an oversized shirt. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her makeup was still perfect. Her hair was still styled in those elaborate curls that had taken 3 hours. She looked like a bride. But she wasn't one. She would never be one, not to him. She washed her face and took down her hair, watching her reflection change from bride to just Natasha again. When she came out of the bathroom, Patricia had set up her laptop on the desk. Okay, we need to make a plan. First thing Monday, you need to meet with your lawyer. Second, you need to change the locks on your apartment because he still has a key. Third, you need to separate all your finances. Do you have any joint accounts? Just one checking account we opened for wedding expenses. Empty it tomorrow and close it. Take whatever is left and put it toward your moving costs. Moving costs. You can't stay in that apartment. Too many memories. Plus, you said you were offered that promotion in Seattle 6 months ago. Maybe it's time to take it. Natasha hadn't thought about Seattle in months. Her company had offered her a position managing their West Coast operations, but she had turned it down because her fiancé didn't want to move. He said his career was established here, that she was asking him to sacrifice too much. Another red flag she had missed. I don't know if the offer is still available. Find out. What's the worst that can happen? They say no and you look for something else. But at least you'd be making a choice for yourself instead of staying somewhere that reminds you of him every day. Natasha thought about it. Seattle was 3,000 miles away. New city. New life. No memories of her failed relationship around every corner. I'll email my boss on Monday. Good. Now let's make a list of everything you need to do. Patricia opened a document on the laptop and started typing. Legal action against ex-fiancé and Brianna. Separate all finances. Change locks. Cancel anything that was in both names. Return any gifts from his family. Block all mutual friends who take his side. Talk to your therapist about processing this trauma. I don't have a therapist. Then get one. Trust me, you're going to need someone professional to talk to about this. I'll be here for you, but I'm not trained to help you work through betrayal trauma. They worked through the list together for over an hour, adding items, organizing by priority. It felt good to have concrete tasks, things she could control when everything else felt chaotic. Finally, Patricia closed the laptop and looked at her seriously. How are you really doing? And don't say fine. Natasha thought about it. I feel numb. Like I'm in shock. I keep waiting for the pain to hit, but it hasn't yet. I just feel empty. That's normal. You're in survival mode. Your brain is protecting you from processing too much at once. The grief will come later when you're ready for it. What if I'm never ready for it? Then it will come anyway. But when it does, I'll be here. So will your dad, your family, everyone who actually loves you. Patricia reached over and squeezed her hand. You're not alone in this. You know that, right? Natasha nodded, even though part of her felt completely alone. The person she thought would be her partner for life had turned out to be a stranger. Someone who saw her as a target, a mark, someone to use and discard. Baron lifted his head and whined softly. He stood up and rested his chin on her lap, looking up at her with those knowing eyes. Except you, Natasha said, scratching behind his ears. You're the real one. The only one who tried to protect me. That dog deserves a steak, Patricia said. Like a really expensive one. Despite everything, Natasha smiled. He does. I'll take him to that fancy pet store tomorrow and let him pick out whatever he wants. They ate cold Chinese food and watched mindless television until Patricia fell asleep in one of the beds. Natasha lay in the other bed, staring at the ceiling with Baron stretched out beside her. She could feel his warmth, his steady breathing, the absolute certainty of his presence. She thought about the wedding that didn't happen. The honeymoon tickets that would go unused. The apartment lease that had both their names. The future she had imagined that would never exist. And somewhere beneath the numbness, beneath the shock, she felt the tiniest spark of something else. Freedom. She didn't have to pretend anymore. Didn't have to try to be perfect for someone who was never going to appreciate her anyway. Didn't have to ignore her instincts or make herself smaller to accommodate someone else's ego. She could be herself. Just herself. And that would be enough. Natasha closed her eyes and let herself drift towards sleep, Baron's steady heartbeat like a lullaby, reminding her that loyalty was real, that trust could exist, that love didn't have to be complicated or conditional. Tomorrow she would start rebuilding. But tonight she would rest. Monday morning arrived with the kind of bright sunshine that felt inappropriate for dismantling a life. Natasha woke up in her own apartment for the first time since the wedding disaster, having finally forced herself to return Sunday evening. Patricia had offered to come with her, but Natasha needed to do this alone. The first thing she did was change the locks. She called a locksmith at 7 in the morning and by 9, new keys sat in her palm. She stood at the door, testing the lock multiple times, feeling a small sense of security return with each click. Baron watched from the couch, his head tilted as if questioning her need to lock and relock the door. It's symbolic, she told him. He can't just walk in here anymore. This is our space now. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, Baron at her feet. The list Patricia had helped her create stretched across 2 pages. Each item felt overwhelming on its own, but together they formed a roadmap out of this mess. First call her lawyer. Richard Morrison had handled her family's legal matters for 20 years. He answered on the second ring. Natasha, I heard what happened. Your father filled me in. I'm so sorry. Thank you. I need your help with several things. Of course. Whatever you need. She outlined everything. The affair. The messages about the prenup scam. The wedding expenses that needed to be recovered. The joint checking account. The apartment lease with both names. Richard listened without interrupting and she could hear him typing notes. This is definitely fraud, he said when she finished. The evidence you have shows clear intent to deceive for financial gain. We can pursue criminal charges if you want, though that's a longer process. We can also file a civil suit to recover damages. What kind of damages? Emotional distress, cost of the wedding, any money you spent on joint expenses with the understanding you were building a future together. It adds up quickly. I just want him out of my life. Whatever is fastest. Then I recommend we start with a cease and desist letter to both of them, outlining that any further contact will be considered harassment. We'll demand repayment of the wedding costs, split evenly between them since they conspired together. If they refuse, we escalate to a lawsuit. Do it. I'll draft the letters today and have them sent by courier. As for the apartment, whose name is on the lease? Both of ours. We signed a year lease 3 months ago. Does your building allow lease breaks? For a fee, yes. Then that's probably your best option. Break the lease, find a new place. Don't give him any reason to stay connected to you through shared property. Richard paused. Are you safe? Do you have any reason to believe he might become aggressive or retaliatory? Natasha thought about it. Her ex-fiancé had always been controlled, calculated. Even his anger was measured, designed to manipulate rather than explode. I don't think so. He's too worried about his reputation. Good. But if that changes, call me immediately. We can get a restraining order if needed. After hanging up with Richard, Natasha moved to the next item on her list. She logged into the joint checking account and saw that her ex-fiancé had already withdrawn half the balance. Of course he had. She transferred the remaining amount to her personal account and then initiated the account closure process. Then she started the tedious work of separating everything else. She removed him as an authorized user on her credit cards. She changed her emergency contact information at work. She updated her social media relationship status to single and then, after thinking about it, deactivated all her accounts entirely. She didn't want to see the comments, the questions, the inevitable gossip. By noon she had worked through half the list. Her phone had buzzed repeatedly with calls and texts from numbers she didn't recognize. He was probably using other people's phones to try to reach her. She ignored them all. At 1 o'clock she called her boss. "Natasha, how are you? I heard about the wedding." Everyone had heard about the wedding. The video had probably gone viral by now. She refused to check. "I'm managing. Actually, I'm calling about that Seattle position. Is it still available?" Her boss, Jennifer, was quiet for a moment. "It is, actually. We filled it temporarily, but the person we hired isn't working out. We were planning to repost it next month." "I want it. I know I turned it down before, but my circumstances have changed. I need a fresh start." "Are you sure? Seattle is a big move and you're dealing with a lot right now. Maybe you should take some time to think about it." "I've thought about it. I want the job. I'll relocate within a month if you need me to." Jennifer was quiet again, and Natasha could imagine her weighing the options. Natasha was good at her job. She brought in clients, managed accounts smoothly, never missed deadlines. She was an asset and Jennifer knew it. "Let me talk to the executive team. Can you give me until Wednesday?" "Yes. Thank you." After hanging up, Natasha felt lighter. The possibility of Seattle glowed on the horizon like a beacon. New city. New office. New everything. She made lunch, forcing herself to eat even though food still tasted like cardboard. Barron sat beside her chair, ever watchful, accepting small pieces of chicken when she offered them. "If we move to Seattle you'll like it," she told him. "There are dog parks. Hiking trails. Rain, which I know you hate, but we'll get you a raincoat." Barron's tail thumped against the floor. Her phone rang. This time it was her father. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay, Dad. Getting things handled. Richard called me. Said you're pursuing legal action." "Good. That boy needs to face consequences." Her father's voice was tight with anger he was trying to control. "Do you need anything? Money? Help moving?" "I might need help moving if the Seattle job comes through. I'll know by Wednesday." "Seattle? That's sudden." "It's not sudden. It's overdue. I should have taken that job 6 months ago." "You're right. You should have. I'm proud of you for taking control of this situation." Those words hit harder than Natasha expected. Her father wasn't the type to express emotions easily. Growing up, he had been stern, focused on success and achievement. Hearing him say he was proud felt like permission to believe she was doing the right thing. "Thanks, Dad. Call me if you need anything." "I mean it. Anything at all." After they hung up, Natasha tackled the next item, returning gifts from her ex-fiancé's family. His mother had given her an antique necklace that belonged to his grandmother. His sister had given her a bracelet. She boxed them carefully, addressed the package and added it to the pile of things to mail. She went through the apartment methodically, removing every trace of him. His clothes went into garbage bags. His toiletries, his books, his coffee mug, everything. She carried the bags down to the building's storage unit and left them there with a note saying he had 1 week to collect them or she would donate everything. By evening the apartment looked different. Emptier but cleaner. Hers. She ordered pizza and sat on the couch with Barron, finally allowing herself to just exist without tasks to complete. The silence felt heavy at first, then gradually more comfortable. Her phone buzzed with an email. "Jennifer. Natasha, good news. The executive team approved your transfer. The Seattle position is yours if you want it. Start date is flexible, but we'd like you there within 6 weeks. Attached is the full offer letter with relocation assistance details. Congratulations, and I'm excited to have you leading our West Coast operations." Natasha read the email 3 times, making sure it was real. Then she opened the attachment and scanned the offer. The salary was 20% higher than her current position. The relocation package was generous. Everything was exactly what she needed. She replied immediately, accepting the position and proposing a start date 5 weeks away. That would give her time to break her lease, pack, find an apartment in Seattle and tie up loose ends here. After sending the email, she sat back and exhaled slowly. What was happening? She was really doing this. Barron climbed onto the couch beside her, something he usually wasn't allowed to do. But tonight, Natasha didn't care about rules. She wrapped her arms around him and buried her face in his fur. "We're moving," she whispered. "We're starting over. Just you and me." Barron licked her cheek, his tail wagging. For the first time since Saturday, Natasha cried. Not the dramatic, sobbing kind of tears she expected. Just quiet tears that slid down her face and soaked into Barron's fur. Tears for the future she had imagined and lost. Tears for the trust that had been broken. Tears for the person she had been before all of this, the version of herself who believed in happy endings and honest partners. But underneath the grief was something else. determination, anger that was finally solidifying into purpose. She had been betrayed, humiliated, treated like a mark instead of a human being. And now she was going to prove that none of it had broken her. She was going to build something better. Something that was entirely hers, that nobody could take away or taint with lies. The pizza arrived and she ate it cold from the box, not caring about plates or proper meals. Baron got his own slice, which he devoured in 3 bites. They fell asleep on the couch together, the television playing quietly in the background, the apartment finally feeling like a place she could breathe. Tomorrow she would start packing. But tonight she had taken the first real steps toward freedom, and that was enough. The apartment in Seattle was smaller than what Natasha had in her old city, but it had something her previous place never did. It was entirely hers. No shared memories. No ghost of a failed relationship haunting the corners. Just clean walls, hardwood floors, and a view of the city skyline that made her feel like she was starting fresh. Baron explored every room thoroughly, sniffing corners and marking his territory in his own way. He seemed to approve, settling into a patch of sunlight near the large living room window with a contented sigh. "I think he likes it," Patricia said from the doorway. She had flown out to help with the move, spending her vacation time making sure Natasha didn't have to face this transition alone. "I like it too." Natasha stood in the center of the living room, hands on her hips, surveying the stack of boxes waiting to be unpacked. "It feels right." The past 5 weeks had been a whirlwind of logistics. Breaking the lease. Selling furniture she didn't want to move. Packing up years of accumulated belongings and deciding what to keep, what to donate, what to leave behind. Every item had been a decision, a small reclaiming of her space and identity. Her ex-fiancé had tried to contact her 43 times during those 5 weeks. Calls from different numbers. Emails from new accounts. Even a letter delivered to her old apartment, which the building manager forwarded to her lawyer instead of to her. Each attempt was more desperate than the last. She never responded. Not once. Richard had sent the cease and desist letters, and when her ex-fiancé and Brianna refused to pay the demanded amount, he had filed a lawsuit. The legal process was moving forward without requiring her direct involvement, which was exactly what she wanted. "Have you heard anything from the lawsuit?" Patricia asked as if reading her mind. "Richard says they're trying to settle out of court. Neither of them wants this to go to trial because all the evidence would become public record. They're offering to split the wedding costs and pay an additional amount for damages. Are you going to accept?" "Probably. I don't want this to drag on for years. I want them out of my life completely." Natasha pulled open a box marked kitchen and started unpacking plates. The money doesn't matter as much as making sure they understand there were consequences. Patricia joined her in unpacking, and they fell into an easy rhythm. They had been friends since college, had weathered breakups and job losses and family drama together. This was just another crisis they were navigating side by side. "When do you start work?" Patricia asked. "Monday. I have the rest of this week to get settled." "And you're sure you're ready? You've been through a lot." "I'm ready. Honestly, I'm looking forward to it. Work is something I'm good at, something I can control. I need that right now." They unpacked in comfortable silence for a while, broken only by Baron's occasional movements as he followed them from room to room, keeping watch. By evening, the apartment looked almost livable. The kitchen was functional. The bedroom was set up. The living room still had boxes stacked along one wall, but the couch was in place and the television was mounted. Patricia ordered Thai food, and they ate sitting on the floor because Natasha hadn't bought a dining table yet. "So what's the plan?" Patricia asked around a mouthful of pad thai. "New city, new job, fresh start." "Are you going to date?" "Absolutely not. Come on. Not everyone is like him." "I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But right now, I don't trust my judgment. I chose him. I ignored red flags. I let myself be manipulated. I need to figure out why I did that before I even think about dating anyone else." "That's actually really healthy." Patricia looked impressed. Most people would jump right into a rebound relationship. "I don't want a rebound. I don't want any relationship. I want to focus on myself for once." Natasha speared a piece of chicken with her fork. "I spent 2 years making my life smaller to fit into his plans. Now I'm going to make my life as big as I want it to be." "I love this energy. What's first on the agenda?" "Besides work? I want to take Baron hiking. There are trails all around here. I want to explore the city, find good coffee shops, maybe take a cooking class. I want to try things I never had time for before because I was always trying to be the perfect girlfriend." "You were the perfect girlfriend. He was the terrible boyfriend." I was accommodating to the point of losing myself. There's a difference. Natasha set down her fork. I'm not blaming myself for what he did. His choices were his own. But I do need to understand why I ignored my instincts so many times. Why I made excuses for behavior that bothered me. Why I prioritized his comfort over my own. Patricia nodded slowly. That's fair. Are you going to see a therapist? Already set up. First appointment is next Thursday. Look at you being all emotionally healthy. They finished dinner and Patricia helped her unpack a few more boxes before heading to her hotel. Natasha had offered to let her stay at the apartment, but Patricia insisted on giving her space to adjust. After she left, Natasha stood at the living room window, looking out at Seattle's lights. Somewhere down there, people were going to dinner, falling in love, having conversations she couldn't hear. Life was continuing, indifferent to her personal drama. And that felt oddly comforting. She didn't need the world to stop for her grief. She didn't need anyone's pity or sympathy. She just needed to keep moving forward, one day at a time, until the weight of what happened stopped feeling quite so heavy. Baron came to stand beside her, pressing his solid body against her legs. This is good, she told him. This is going to be good. Monday morning arrived too quickly. Natasha dressed carefully in a blue blazer and black pants, professional but not trying too hard. She fed Baron, took him for a quick walk, and then drove to the office in her new car, another purchase she had made to replace the one she had shared with her ex. The Seattle office was modern, all glass and open floor plans. Her new team greeted her warmly, and by lunch she was already knee-deep in client files and strategy meetings. It felt good to be useful, to be competent, to be valued for her skills instead of her bank account. Her new assistant, Grace, was efficient and friendly. Over coffee, she mentioned the best lunch spots nearby and which partners were easy to work with versus which ones were difficult. How are you adjusting to Seattle? Grace asked. Still figuring it out. I just moved here last week. Big move? Career opportunity? Something like that. Grace seemed to sense there was more to the story but didn't push. Natasha appreciated that. She didn't want to be the new employee with the dramatic backstory. She wanted to be known for her work. The week passed in a blur of meetings and introductions. By Friday, Natasha felt like she had been working there for months instead of days. The rhythm was familiar, comforting. She knew how to do this. She was good at this. After work, she drove to a hiking trail Patricia had recommended. Baron bounded out of the car, thrilled by the promise of adventure. They walked for 2 hours, following a path through dense forest that opened occasionally to reveal stunning views of mountains and water. Other hikers passed them, offering friendly nods and comments about Baron. A woman with 2 golden retrievers stopped to chat, and they talked about dog-friendly trails in the area. It was normal, easy, exactly what Natasha needed. By the time she got home, she was exhausted in the best way. She showered, made dinner, and settled onto the couch with Baron. Her phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. How was your first week? Really good actually. I think this was the right decision. Told you. New city, new life. You're thriving already. Natasha smiled at the phone. She wouldn't say she was thriving yet, but she was surviving and that was enough for now. Saturday she explored the city. She found a farmer's market with incredible produce and homemade bread. She discovered a coffee shop with perfect lattes and friendly baristas. She walked through a bookstore for an hour, buying 3 novels she probably wouldn't have time to read. Every small discovery felt like claiming a piece of her new life. This was her city now. Her routines. Her favorite spots. Sunday she video called her father. The apartment looks nice, he said, taking in the background behind her. It's coming together. Still needs some furniture, but it's functional. And work is going well? Very well. I think I'm going to like this position. Her father nodded approvingly. I'm glad you made this move. You needed distance from everything that happened. They talked for a while about nothing important. Her father updated her on family news, asked about Baron, mentioned that he had run into her ex-fiancé's father at a business function and had pointedly turned away without speaking. After hanging up, Natasha felt a swell of gratitude for her family. They had rallied around her without question, supporting her decisions even when they didn't fully understand them. That evening, she sat at her laptop and opened a document she had been thinking about for weeks. She started writing down everything she had learned from the experience. Not as therapy, though it was therapeutic, but as a record for herself, a reminder of red flags to watch for, patterns to avoid, lessons learned the hard way. She wrote about how he had isolated her from friends by criticizing them subtly. How he had made her doubt her instincts by calling her paranoid. How he had love-bombed her in the beginning, overwhelming her with attention and affection that made her feel special, until she was hooked, and then he started withdrawing it strategically. She wrote about how she had accommodated, adjusted, made herself smaller, convinced herself that relationships required compromise even when she was the only one compromising. And she wrote about what she would do differently next time. Trust her gut. Maintain her friendships. Never make her life smaller to fit someone else's vision. Require consistency instead of accepting excuses. By the time she finished, it was nearly midnight. Baron was snoring on the couch. The city outside her window was quieter now, settling into night. Natasha saved the document and closed her laptop. She felt raw but clearer, like she had performed surgery on her own memories and removed the infected parts. She was healing. Slowly, messily, but definitely healing. And Seattle, with its rain and coffee and mountains and possibilities, was the perfect place to do it. 3 months in Seattle changed Natasha in ways she hadn't expected. She woke up one Tuesday morning in November and realized she had gone an entire day without thinking about her ex-fiancé. Not once. The absence of that constant mental background noise felt like breathing easier after years of low-grade suffocation. Work consumed most of her energy in the best possible way. She had successfully negotiated 3 major contracts, expanded the client base by 15%, and earned praise from the executive team during her 90-day review. Her new colleagues respected her, and she had fallen into an easy friendship with Grace, who had introduced her to the best sushi place in the city and a book club that met monthly. The book club had been a surprise. Natasha wasn't usually a joiner, but Grace insisted, and she found herself looking forward to Thursday evenings in a cozy independent bookstore, discussing literature with 7 other women who were smart and funny and had no connection to her past life. "You seem different," Grace commented during lunch one day. They were at a Vietnamese restaurant near the office, sharing spring rolls while rain pelted the windows. Seattle rain was constant but oddly comforting, like the city was washing everything clean. Different how? Lighter. When you first started, you seemed like you were carrying something heavy. Now you just seem like yourself. Natasha considered that. "I think I am lighter. I was going through something when I moved here. Still working through it, honestly, but it's getting easier. Want to talk about it? Maybe another time." Natasha smiled to soften the deflection. "I'm still processing." Grace nodded and changed the subject to the new client presentation they were working on, respecting the boundary Natasha had drawn. Therapy was helping with the processing. Dr. Rachel Chin, her therapist, had a way of asking questions that made Natasha see patterns she had missed before. They talked about attachment styles, about people-pleasing tendencies, about the difference between compromise and self-abandonment. "You're doing important work," Dr. Chin had said during their last session. "Rebuilding your ability to trust yourself. That's the foundation everything else rests on." Natasha clung to that. Trust herself. Listen to her instincts. Stop overriding her own discomfort to keep other people happy. She was practicing in small ways. When a coworker asked her to take on extra work that wasn't her responsibility, she said no politely but firmly. When a guy at the coffee shop asked for her number, she declined without inventing a fake boyfriend as an excuse. When her friend from the book club suggested they all go to a loud bar that Natasha knew she wouldn't enjoy, she said she'd rather skip it and suggested coffee next week instead. Each small assertion of her preferences felt like reclaiming territory. Baron was thriving too. They hiked every weekend, exploring new trails. She had found a dog park he loved, where he raced around with other dogs, tongue-lolling, completely happy. The vet she found in Seattle, Dr. Trevor Mills, had checked him out and declared him in perfect health. Dr. Mills was kind in a way that didn't feel performative. When Baron had gotten nervous during his examination, Dr. Mills had sat on the floor to meet him at eye level instead of forcing him onto the table. He took his time, explaining everything he was doing, treating Baron like he mattered. "He's a good dog," Dr. Mills had said. "Very loyal. You can tell he trusts you completely." "He's the only reason I didn't make the biggest mistake of my life," Natasha had replied without thinking, then felt her face flush. She hadn't meant to say that. But Dr. Mills just nodded. "Dogs have good instincts about people. If he trusts you, that says something important." That had been 6 weeks ago. Since then she had brought Baron back twice, once for a follow-up vaccination and once when he had cut his paw on a hiking trail. Each time, Dr. Mills had been patient and thorough, and Natasha found herself looking forward to the appointments in a way that had nothing to do with Baron's health care. She refused to examine that feeling too closely. "You should ask him out," Grace said one afternoon when Natasha mentioned taking Baron to the vet again. "Who?" The vet. You get this look when you talk about him. I do not have a look. You absolutely have a look. It's the, I think this person is attractive but I'm pretending I don't notice look. Natasha laughed. Even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, I'm not interested in dating anyone right now. Why not? It's been almost 6 months since your move. That's a reasonable amount of time to start putting yourself out there again. I'm not ready. And honestly, I'm happy being alone. I like my life the way it is. Grace studied her carefully. You're not using being alone as armor, are you? Like, you're not avoiding dating because you're scared. Maybe a little scared, Natasha admitted. But also genuinely happy with where I am right now. Why do I have to be looking for a relationship? Why can't I just be content as I am? You can. You absolutely can. I just don't want you to close yourself off completely because one person hurt you. I'm not closed off. I'm selective. There's a difference. They dropped the subject, but the conversation stayed with Natasha for days. Was she being selective or was she hiding? She genuinely didn't feel lonely. Her days were full, her friendships were meaningful, her work was satisfying. She had Baron, who was better company than most humans. She had built a life she liked. But was she avoiding something important? The following Thursday she went to book club. They were discussing a memoir about a woman who had hiked the Pacific Crest Trail alone after her divorce. The group had strong opinions about whether the hike was healing or avoidance. Sometimes you have to run away to figure out how to come back, one woman argued. But at some point you have to face what you're running from, another countered. Natasha listened more than she spoke, turning the ideas over in her mind. What was she running from? She had faced what happened. She had dealt with the legal matters, separated her life completely from her ex, moved across the country, built something new. Maybe she wasn't running from anything. Maybe she was running toward something. Toward herself, toward the version of her that existed independent of anyone else's expectations or betrayals. After book club, she walked Baron through her neighborhood. The November air was crisp and cold, the kind of weather that made her feel alert and alive. Lights glowed in apartment windows, each one a small universe she couldn't see into. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Natasha, this is Brianna. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to talk to you. I'm sorry for everything. Please give me a chance to explain. Natasha stared at the message for a long moment. Then she blocked the number and deleted the text without responding. She didn't need an explanation. She didn't need an apology. She didn't need closure from the people who had hurt her. She had already found closure on her own terms by building a life they had no place in. That was the moment she realized she had truly moved on. Not because the pain was gone completely, but because it no longer dictated her choices. She could see a message from Brianna and feel nothing but mild annoyance at the interruption, then delete it and move on with her evening. The power they had over her was gone. When she got home, she sat down and wrote an email to Richard, her lawyer. I'm ready to settle. Whatever they're offering, take it. I don't want to spend another minute of my life dealing with them. His response came 30 minutes later. Understood. I'll finalize the settlement agreement this week. This will be completely resolved by the end of the month. Natasha closed her laptop and looked around her apartment. It was fully furnished now, decorated with things she had chosen. Plants on the windowsill. Art on the walls. A bookshelf overflowing with novels. Everything reflected her taste, her choices, her life. Baron was sprawled across the couch, snoring softly. She joined him, curling up with a book, feeling completely content. This was happiness. Not the dramatic movie version kind where everything was perfect. But the quiet, sustainable kind where she felt at peace with herself and her choices. Where she could spend a Friday night reading on her couch and feel completely fulfilled. Maybe someday she would want a relationship again. Maybe she would meet someone who made her want to make space in her life for partnership. But it wouldn't be because she needed someone to complete her or validate her worth. It would be because she chose to share her already complete life with someone worthy of being let in. And if that day never came, she would still be happy. Because she had herself and she had learned the hard way that herself was enough. Outside, rain continued to fall on Seattle, washing away the past and watering the seeds of whatever came next. December brought the kind of cold that made Natasha grateful for her decision to buy a proper winter coat. She stood outside the veterinary clinic, Baron beside her, both of them watching their breath fog in the air. This was their third visit in 2 months, this time for Baron's annual checkup. She pushed open the door and warmth enveloped them immediately. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and pet shampoo, familiar now in a way that felt comfortable. Natasha and Baron, the receptionist, greeted them with a smile. Dr. Mills will be with you in just a few minutes. They sat in the waiting area. Baron settled at her feet, calm despite the presence of 2 cats and carriers and a nervous terrier that wouldn't stop barking. A small child approached cautiously, asking if he could pet the big doggy. Sure, but gently, Natasha said, watching Baron's tail wag as tiny hands patted his head. He's nice, the child declared before returning to his mother. Baron, we're ready for you, the vet tech called from the doorway. They followed her into the examination room. Baron hopped onto the scale without prompting, having learned the routine. The tech recorded his weight, took his temperature and made notes in his file. Dr. Mills will be right in, she said, closing the door behind her. Natasha checked her phone while they waited. Grace had sent her a meme about office holiday parties. Patricia had texted asking about Christmas plans. Work emails could wait until Monday. The door opened and Dr. Mills walked in, his smile genuine and reaching his eyes. How's my favorite patient doing? He knelt down to greet Baron first, rubbing behind his ears in the spot that made Baron's back leg thump. Then he looked up at Natasha. And how are you? We're both good. No issues to report. That's what I like to hear. He stood and pulled on gloves, beginning his examination. His movements were confident but gentle, talking to Baron the entire time. Let's see those teeth. Good boy. Now the ears. Perfect. Natasha watched him work, noticing details she had tried not to notice before. The way his hair fell across his forehead when he bent down. The laugh lines around his eyes. The wedding ring that wasn't there, which she definitely hadn't been checking for multiple times. Everything looks great, Dr. Mills said, finishing the exam. He's in excellent health. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. We hike a lot. He seems to love it. Exercise is important. Although with this cold weather, I bet the trails are getting pretty icy. Some of them. We stick to the maintained ones now. Dr. Mills pulled off his gloves and tossed them in the trash. Then he hesitated as if debating something internally. I don't usually do this, he said slowly. But there's a dog-friendly holiday event at the park this Saturday. Owners bring their dogs, there are vendors, some basic agility courses set up. It's pretty fun. I volunteer there every year. You and Baron might enjoy it. It wasn't quite an invitation, but it was close enough that Natasha felt her pulse quicken. That sounds interesting, she said carefully. It starts at 10. Runs until about 2. No pressure, but if you show up, I'll be at the agility course booth most of the morning. He smiled, and there was something hopeful in it that made Natasha's stomach flip. Maybe I'll stop by. I hope you do. He pulled out a card and wrote something on the back. Here's the address. Like I said, no pressure. But it would be nice to see you outside of exam rooms. After they left the clinic, Natasha sat in her car for several minutes, staring at the card with the address written in neat handwriting. Baron waited patiently in the back seat, having learned that sometimes humans needed time to process things. Was this a date? It didn't sound like a date. It sounded like a casual invitation to a public event that she could attend or not attend without any awkwardness. Which was actually perfect because the idea of a formal date made her want to run screaming. But the idea of seeing Dr. Mills somewhere other than the clinic, where they could talk about things that weren't Baron's health, didn't make her want to run at all. She drove home, the card sitting in her cup holder like a small decision waiting to be made. Friday night she called Patricia. I need advice. This sounds serious. What's going on? There's this guy. Natasha explained the situation while pacing her apartment. He invited me to this dog event. I think, maybe. It was a very casual invitation, but it felt like maybe it was more than casual. Do you want to go? I don't know. Yes, maybe. I'm not ready to date anyone. It's not a date. It's a dog event that he happens to also be attending. You have fun, great. It's weird you leave. There's no pressure. But what if he thinks it's a date? Then you clarify that you're not ready for dating but you enjoyed talking to him. Natasha, you're overthinking this. Go to the event. Bring Baron. See what happens. You don't have to decide anything right now. After hanging up, Natasha looked at Baron. What do you think? Want to go to a dog event tomorrow? Baron's tail wagged, but then again his tail wagged at most suggestions. Saturday morning she changed clothes 3 times before settling on jeans and a red sweater. Casual but presentable. Not trying too hard. She braided her hair, applied minimal makeup, and gave herself a stern look in the mirror. This is not a date. This is a dog event. You're going because it sounds fun, not because of Dr. Mills. The pep talk didn't quite convince her, but she grabbed Baron's leash and her coat anyway. The park was crowded when they arrived. Dogs of every size ran around, Owners chatted in clusters, vendors sold handmade pet accessories and treats. Holiday music played from speakers near a small stage where someone was doing a demonstration with their border collie. Natasha felt nervous for about 30 seconds, and then Baron pulled her toward a group of dogs playing fetch, and she was too busy managing him to worry about anything else. Natasha, you made it. She turned to see Dr. Mills jogging toward them, wearing a volunteer vest and looking genuinely happy to see her. Her stomach did that flip thing again. We decided to check it out, she said, aiming for casual. I'm glad. How's Baron handling all the excitement? They both looked at Baron, who was currently trying to convince a golden retriever to share its tennis ball. About as well as expected, Natasha laughed. Come on, I'll show you the agility course. It's pretty simple, but dogs love it. He led them through the crowd, stopping occasionally to greet other volunteers and their dogs. People clearly liked him. He had an easy way of talking to everyone, making them feel welcomed and included. The agility course was set up with basic obstacles: tunnels, small jumps, a weave pole course. Dr. Mills explained how it worked while several dogs demonstrated, their owners cheering them on. Want to try it with Baron? He asked. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's fine. Neither do most people their first time. I'll talk you through it. And he did. He walked alongside them as Natasha guided Baron through the course, offering encouragement and tips, laughing when Baron got distracted by a squirrel halfway through. When they finished, Baron looked proud of himself despite his terrible time. That was terrible, Natasha said, breathless from running around. That was perfect. Baron had fun. That's what matters. They ran the course 2 more times, and by the end, Baron was getting the hang of it. Other dog owners clapped when he completed a full run without distractions. He's a natural, someone commented. He just needed to figure it out, Dr. Mills said, giving Baron a treat from his pocket. Natasha felt ridiculously happy watching Baron enjoy himself. And if she was honest, she was enjoying herself too. Dr. Mills was easy to talk to, funny without trying too hard, genuinely interested in what she said. They ended up spending 3 hours at the event. They got coffee from one of the vendors and walked around, looking at handmade dog toys and talking about everything from favorite hiking trails to terrible movies they secretly loved. At some point, Natasha realized she had stopped thinking of him as Dr. Mills and started thinking of him as Trevor. As the event was winding down, Trevor turned to her. I'm really glad you came today. Me too. Baron had a great time. What about you? Did you have a great time? There was something vulnerable in the way he asked, like her answer mattered more than he wanted to admit. I did, she said honestly. This was fun. Would you maybe want to do something else sometime? There's a new pizza place downtown I've been wanting to try. They allow dogs on the patio. There it was. The actual invitation. The moment where she had to decide if she was ready for this. Natasha looked at Baron, who was lying at her feet, exhausted and happy. Then she looked at Trevor, who was watching her with patient hopefulness. She thought about what Dr. Chin had said. You'll know when you're ready. Trust yourself. Did she want to have pizza with Trevor? Yes. Did that mean she was ready for a relationship? No. But did it mean she was ready to try having dinner with someone who made her laugh and treated her dog well? Maybe. I'd like that, she said. But I need to be honest with you. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I'm still working through some stuff from my past, and I'm not ready to jump into dating. That's fair. How about we just have pizza and see where it goes? No expectations. No pressure. Just 2 people and a dog having dinner. That sounds perfect. They exchanged phone numbers and Trevor promised to text her about pizza plans. As Natasha drove home with Baron snoring in the back seat, she felt a mix of excitement and terror that balanced out to cautious optimism. She wasn't falling for anyone. She wasn't opening herself up to getting hurt again. She was just having pizza with a nice person who happened to also be attractive and kind to animals. Was fine. Everything was fine. Her phone buzzed with a text. Trevor. Had a great time today. Looking forward to pizza. Also, Baron did amazing on that agility course. Natasha smiled and typed back. He's already asking when we can go back. Anytime. I'm there most Saturdays. She set her phone down and looked at Baron in the rearview mirror. What did we just agree to? Baron slept on, unbothered by her internal crisis. Maybe that was the answer. Stop overthinking. Just live. See what happened. Trust herself to know when something felt wrong and have the strength to walk away if it did. She could do that. She had rebuilt her entire life once already. She could handle pizza with a veterinarian. Probably. January arrived with frozen rain and a promotion Natasha hadn't seen coming. She sat in Jennifer's office, staring at the offer letter, trying to process the words. Senior Director of West Coast Operations. You've earned this, Jennifer said from across the desk. The executive team was unanimous. You've exceeded every goal we set for you, and you've done it while building relationships across departments. That's exactly the kind of leadership we need. This is more than I expected, Natasha admitted, scanning the compensation package. The salary increase was substantial. The benefits were excellent. The responsibility was significant. Take the weekend to think about it if you need to. I don't need to think about it. I accept. Jennifer smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We'll make the announcement next week. Congratulations, Natasha. You've worked hard for this. Walking out of Jennifer's office, Natasha felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with anyone else's validation. This was hers. She had earned it through her skills, her dedication, her ability to rebuild after everything fell apart. She called her father first. Senior Director? Natasha, that's incredible. How long have you been with the company now? 8 years total. 6 months in Seattle. They promoted you after 6 months. That says everything about how valuable you are. Thanks, Dad. I'm proud of you. Your mother would be too. Her mother had died when Natasha was 16, a loss that still ached in quiet moments. But hearing her father invoke her memory for something good, something worth celebrating, made Natasha's eyes sting with tears she refused to let fall. I wish she could have seen this. She can't. Wherever she is, she knows. She always believed you could do anything you set your mind to. After hanging up, Natasha stood outside the office building, letting the cold air clear her head. She had done it. She had built something meaningful from nothing, starting over in a new city with just herself and Baron, and now she was standing in a position of leadership that reflected her capabilities. Her ex-fiancé would never know about this promotion. Brianna would never know. They were ghosts from a past life that had no bearing on her present. And that felt exactly right. She texted Patricia. Got promoted. Senior Director. The response came immediately. What? That's amazing. We need to celebrate. I'm booking a flight to Seattle next month. Then she hesitated before texting Trevor. They had been seeing each other casually for almost 2 months now. Pizza had turned into coffee, which turned into hiking with Baron, which turned into movies and dinners and easy conversations that never felt pressured or complicated. They hadn't defined what they were doing. They weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. They were just two people who enjoyed spending time together, with a mutual understanding that Natasha wasn't ready for anything serious. Trevor had been patient about that in a way that made her feel respected instead of frustrated. Good news to share. Dinner tonight if you're free? His response came quickly. Congratulations on whatever it is. Yes to dinner. Want me to bring Baron a celebration treat? She smiled at her phone. He would love that. That evening, she told Trevor about the promotion over Thai food at their usual spot. He listened with genuine interest, asking questions about her new responsibilities and what the transition would look like. This is a big deal, he said, raising his water glass. To Natasha, who keeps proving she can do anything. They clinked glasses, and she felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the spicy curry. How's the clinic going? She asked, shifting focus away from herself. Good. Busy. We're thinking about bringing on another vet, actually. The caseload has increased enough that we need more coverage. They talked about his work, about the funny animals he'd treated that week, about his plan to take a weekend trip to visit his parents in Oregon. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and comfortable silences. When he drove her home, he walked her to her door like he always did. Thanks for celebrating with me, Natasha said. Thanks for sharing it with me. Trevor hesitated, then said, I know we're taking things slow and I respect that. But I want you to know I'm happy we're doing whatever this is. No pressure for it to be anything more than what it is right now. I appreciate that. This works for me. Is it working for you? It is. You're worth waiting for, whatever that waiting looks like. He left with a brief hug, and Natasha went inside feeling grateful for his understanding. She wasn't ready to call him her boyfriend. She wasn't ready to introduce him to her family or make him a permanent part of her life narrative. She was still building herself, still learning who she was outside of a relationship. But having him around in this casual, low-pressure way felt good. It felt safe. And safety right now was exactly what she needed. February brought Valentine's Day, a holiday Natasha had been dreading. Last year she had been planning her wedding. This year she was single and fine with it, but the cultural pressure of the day still made her uncomfortable. Trevor solved that problem by suggesting they have an anti-Valentine's Day dinner with Baron as their date. They went to a burger place that allowed dogs, ordered enormous burgers and shared fries while mocking the heart-shaped decorations everywhere. "This is so much better than roses and chocolate," Natasha said, giving Baron a piece of her bun. "Agreed. Although I did bring Baron something." He pulled out a heart-shaped dog treat from his pocket. Baron accepted it graciously and finished it in 2 bites. "You spoil him. He deserves it. He's excellent company." They left the restaurant and walked through a nearby park, watching other couples take selfies by the fountain. Natasha felt completely content, no romance required. "Thank you for this," she said. "For understanding that I needed today to not be about traditional romantic stuff. We all have our baggage." "I get it." Trevor was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask what happened?" "You don't have to tell me, but I'd like to understand." Natasha considered deflecting, but something about the quiet evening and Trevor's patient presence made her want to share. "I was supposed to get married last year. On the day of the wedding, my dog stopped me from walking down the aisle. Turns out my fiancé was having an affair with our wedding planner, and they were planning to scam me and my family out of money. Baron somehow knew. He found evidence and stopped me from making the worst mistake of my life." Trevor stopped walking. "That's why Baron is so special to you. He saved me. Literally. If he hadn't stopped me, I would have married someone who never loved me. I'm sorry that happened to you." "That's brutal." "It was. But it also freed me. I moved to Seattle, started over, built this life. And I like my life now. I'm not ready to risk it by getting too close to someone who might hurt me again." "That makes sense." Trevor started walking again, his hands in his pockets. "For what it's worth, I'm not that guy. But I understand why you need time to figure that out for yourself." They walked in comfortable silence until they reached her apartment. Baron bounded up the stairs ahead of them, tired from his evening adventure. "Thanks for tonight," Natasha said at her door. "Anytime. I mean that. If you ever want to talk about what happened, or if you don't want to talk about it, I'm here either way." After he left, Natasha sat with Baron and thought about how much her life had changed in less than a year. Last February she was planning a wedding to someone who was lying to her every day. This February she was a senior director with a dog who loved her and a person in her life who respected her boundaries without making her feel guilty for having them. Progress looked different than she expected, but it was still progress. March brought her first major presentation as senior director. She stood in front of the executive team and 15 department heads, presenting a strategy for expanding their West Coast presence. She had spent weeks preparing, running numbers, anticipating questions. The presentation went flawlessly. Her proposals were approved with minimal pushback. 2 executives personally thanked her afterward for her thorough analysis. Grace hugged her in the hallway. "You killed it in there. Like absolutely destroyed it." "It went okay," Natasha said, but she was glowing inside. "Okay? Natasha, you just convinced them to invest $2 million in your strategy. That's not okay. That's spectacular." That evening, Natasha treated herself to expensive wine and takeout from her favorite Italian place. She sat on her couch with Baron, toasting to her success, feeling proud of herself in a way that was entirely independent of anyone else's opinion. Her phone buzzed with a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Natasha, this is your ex. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I need to tell you that the settlement is finalized. My lawyer confirmed it's done. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're doing well." She stared at the message for several seconds. Then she deleted it without responding and blocked the number. The settlement was finished. That chapter of her life was officially closed. She felt nothing about the message except relief that he was finally, completely out of her life. She texted Trevor instead. "The legal stuff from my past is officially done." "That's great news. How do you feel?" "Free. Want to celebrate with hiking tomorrow? There's a new trail I've been wanting to try." "Yes. Baron would love that." The next day they hiked through dense forest, Baron running ahead on the trail, Trevor pointing out different birds and plants. Natasha felt completely present, not thinking about the past or worrying about the future, just existing in the moment. At the summit, they stopped to catch their breath and take in the view of mountains stretching endlessly in every direction. "This is perfect," Natasha said. Trevor looked at her instead of the view. "It really is." She felt his meaning but chose not to acknowledge it directly. Instead, she pulled out her phone and took a picture of the 3 of them together, Baron panting happily between them. Later, looking at that photo, Natasha realized something had shifted. She was happy. Not pretending to be happy, not working toward happiness, just genuinely content with her life exactly as it was. And if Trevor was part of that happiness, maybe that was okay. Maybe she didn't have to define it or rush it or overthink it. Maybe she could just let it be what it was and trust herself to know if and when it needed to change. For now, this was enough. She was enough. And that was everything. April brought cherry blossoms to Seattle and unwanted messages from the past. Natasha was reviewing quarterly reports when her phone lit up with a notification from Instagram. She had reactivated her account a few weeks earlier, convinced by Grace that complete social media isolation wasn't necessary anymore. The message request was from her ex-fiancée's sister, someone Natasha had once considered a friend. "Hi Natasha. I know this is unexpected, but my brother has been struggling. He's in therapy now and working through what he did. He asked me to reach out because you blocked him. He wants to apologize properly. Would you be willing to meet with him? He's really sorry." Natasha read the message twice, feeling absolutely nothing beyond mild irritation. She screenshotted it, sent it to Patricia with the caption, "You seeing this?" and then deleted the message request without responding. Patricia called immediately. "Are you kidding me right now? He sent his sister to guilt you into talking to him? Apparently he's in therapy now. How noble. Please tell me you're not considering meeting with him." "Of course not. I have zero interest in his apology or his therapy progress. That's his journey, not mine." "Good. I was worried you might feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated to make anyone else feel better about hurting me. He can work through his guilt with his therapist. I'm not his emotional support victim. I'm so proud of you right now." After hanging up, Natasha went back to her reports. The attempted contact bothered her less than she expected. Maybe because she had built such a complete life without him that his regret felt irrelevant. He was a cautionary tale, she told herself sometimes, a reminder to trust her instincts, but he wasn't a current character in her story. 2 days later, another message appeared. This time from Brianna via LinkedIn. "Natasha, I owe you an enormous apology. What I did was unforgivable, and I've spent the past year understanding how much damage I caused. I lost my business, my reputation, and most importantly, my integrity. I'm in therapy now and working on being a better person. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused. You deserved so much better." Natasha read it during her lunch break, sitting in the office cafeteria with Grace. "Why are they both reaching out now?" she asked, showing Grace the message. "Probably because enough time has passed that they think you've cooled down. Or their therapist told them to make amends as part of their recovery process. It's very 12-step. Their recovery isn't my responsibility." "Exactly. You can delete this and move on with your life." But Natasha found herself thinking about it all afternoon. Not because she wanted to forgive them or hear them out, but because their attempts at apology revealed something. They needed her more than she needed anything from them. They needed her forgiveness to feel better about themselves, to close their own chapter and move forward. And she had the power to deny them that closure. That evening she talked about it in therapy. "How do you feel about these apology attempts?" Dr. Chen asked. "Annoyed. Like they're trying to use me for their own healing process without considering whether I want any part of it." "That's a valid feeling. Do you feel any obligation to respond?" "No." "Well, maybe a small part of me wonders if I should, but that's probably just old programming telling me to be nice and accommodating." "What does your gut tell you?" Natasha sat with the question. "My gut says I don't owe them anything. They made their choices. They hurt me deliberately. The fact that they regret it now doesn't change what they did or give them the right to my time and energy." That sounds like a healthy boundary. But society tells us we're supposed to forgive people. That holding grudges is toxic. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. It's about releasing the power they have over your emotional state. But forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation or communication. You can forgive someone and still choose never to speak to them again. Those are separate things. "I don't know if I've forgiven them. I don't think about them much anymore, but when I do, I still feel angry about what they did." Anger is appropriate when someone violates your trust. You don't have to rush past it. The question is whether that anger is still serving you or whether it's taking up space that could be used for something else. Natasha thought about it. Was she still angry? Yes, but it was a distant anger, like looking at a bruise that had mostly healed. It hurt when pressed but didn't affect her daily life anymore. "I think I'm mostly indifferent now. What they did sucked, but it led me here to this life I've built. I don't hate them. I just don't care about them." That sounds like progress. Over the weekend, Natasha hiked with Trevor and Baron at Mount Rainier. The snow was melting, revealing early wildflowers. Baron raced ahead, exploring every new smell, while Trevor and Natasha walked at a comfortable pace. "You've been quiet today," Trevor observed. "Everything okay?" She explained about the apology attempts. Trevor listened without interrupting, his attention fully on her words. "What did you decide?" he asked when she finished. "I decided not to respond. Their healing is their problem, not mine." "That's fair. Do you think you'll ever want to talk to them?" "No. What would be the point? Hearing them apologize won't change what happened. It won't give me back the time I wasted on them or the trust they broke. It would just be an opportunity for them to feel better, and I'm not interested in providing that service." Trevor smiled. "You're pretty tough, you know that? I'm protective of my peace. That's different than tough." "Maybe. But I admire it. You know your boundaries and you enforce them. That's rare." They stopped at an overlook, admiring the view of snow-capped mountains and valleys stretching endlessly. Baron joined them, panting from his exploration. "Can I ask you something?" Trevor said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Sure. Are you happy? Like, genuinely happy with your life right now?" "I am. Why?" "Just making sure. Sometimes I worry that I'm pushing for more than you're ready for." Natasha turned to face him fully. "Are you wanting more than what we have?" "Eventually, maybe. But I'm okay with where we are now. I just want to make sure you are too." She considered her response carefully. "I'm happy with this. I like spending time with you. I'm just not ready to call it a relationship or make it official or whatever that would look like. Is that okay?" "It's okay. I'll let you know if it stops being okay and you do the same. Deal?" "Deal." They shook hands mock formally and the tension broke. But later, driving home, Natasha wondered if she was being fair to Trevor. He clearly cared about her more than she was ready to reciprocate. Was she leading him on by continuing to spend time with him when she couldn't promise him anything serious? She brought it up in therapy the following week. "Do you think you're leading him on?" Dr. Chen asked. "Maybe. I don't know. I've been honest about where I am, but I can't control what he hopes for." "That's true. But you can control your own behavior. Are you spending time with him because you genuinely enjoy his company, or because it's comfortable and easy?" "Both. I do enjoy his company. He makes me laugh. Baron loves him. But it's also easy, and after everything that happened, easy feels good." "There's nothing wrong with easy. But you need to be honest with yourself about whether you're using him as a placeholder while you heal or whether you actually want him in your life long-term." "I don't know what I want long-term. I'm still figuring that out." "That's fair. Just keep checking in with yourself. Make sure you're not settling for comfortable when you actually want something different." The conversation stayed with Natasha for days. Was she settling? Was comfortable enough? She didn't have answers yet, but she appreciated the questions. They meant she was thinking critically about her choices instead of just drifting through them. In mid-April, she received one more message. This time from her ex-fiancé's mother, a woman who had always been kind to her. "Dear Natasha, I wanted to reach out personally to apologize for my son's behavior. What he did was inexcusable, and I'm heartbroken that he hurt you so deeply. I also want you to know that I don't expect or need a response. I just wanted you to hear that I'm sorry, and that you deserved so much better. I hope you're doing well and finding happiness. With love and regret." Natasha read this message several times. Unlike the others, it didn't ask for anything. It didn't try to facilitate reconciliation. It was just an apology, clean and simple. She thought about responding. But ultimately she decided against it. Not because the message wasn't genuine, but because engaging at all would open a door she wanted to keep closed. Any response would invite further contact, and she didn't want that. Instead, she saved the message, appreciating the gesture without feeling obligated to acknowledge it. Then she closed her laptop and went to play with Baron in the living room. The past kept trying to insert itself into her present, but she had become skilled at keeping boundaries. She wasn't cruel about it. She wasn't vindictive. She simply refused to let people who had hurt her claim space in her new life. That wasn't holding a grudge. That was self-preservation. And she was completely at peace with that choice. May in Seattle was beautiful in a way that made Natasha understand why people loved the Pacific Northwest despite the rain. Flowers bloomed everywhere. The air smelled clean. The days stretched longer, promising summer. She sat in her office, reviewing the success of her Q1 initiatives. Every metric had exceeded projections. Client satisfaction was up. Revenue had increased 18%. The executive team had formally recognized her contributions during the quarterly meeting. Grace knocked on her door frame. "Ready for lunch?" Give me 5 minutes. They had developed a routine: lunch on Fridays at the sushi place, debriefing the week and planning the weekend. It was one of Natasha's favorite parts of her schedule, this easy friendship that had developed organically. Over California rolls, Grace said, "So real talk. What's happening with the vet?" Natasha had known this question was coming. Grace had been patient for months, but her curiosity was finally winning. "We're still seeing each other. Casually. For 6 months. That's not casual anymore. That's a relationship whether you call it that or not. We're not exclusive. We haven't had the talk. Natasha, you see him 3 times a week. Baron has a toothbrush at his apartment. He has a key to your place in case of emergency. You're in a relationship. You're just refusing to acknowledge it. I'm not ready for that label." "Why not? What are you protecting yourself from?" Natasha set down her chopsticks. "I'm protecting my independence. I like my life the way it is. The second I call Trevor my boyfriend, expectations change. Obligations appear. I become half of a couple instead of my own person. That's only true if you let it be true. Healthy relationships don't require you to lose yourself. They're supposed to enhance who you are, not diminish you. I know that intellectually. But my experience taught me otherwise. Your ex was a manipulative con artist. Trevor is a kind person who respects your boundaries. They're not the same, and treating them like they are isn't fair to Trevor or to you." The words hit harder than Natasha expected. She knew Grace was right. She had been comparing Trevor to her ex-fiancé, measuring every interaction against past trauma, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "What if I let him in completely and he hurts me?" Natasha asked quietly. "What if you don't let him in and you miss out on something good?" "That's the risk of living, Natasha. You can't guarantee you won't get hurt. But you can guarantee you'll never experience real intimacy if you keep everyone at arm's length." They finished lunch mostly in silence, but the conversation churned in Natasha's mind all afternoon. Was she sabotaging something good because of fear? Was she using independence as armor instead of freedom? That evening, Trevor came over for their usual Friday movie night. Baron greeted him enthusiastically, as if they hadn't seen each other in weeks instead of days. They ordered Chinese food and settled on the couch, navigating through streaming options. Halfway through the movie, Natasha paused it. "Can we talk about something?" Trevor muted the television. "Of course. What's up? What are we doing?" "Like really doing?" "What do you mean?" "We've been seeing each other for 6 months. We spend multiple days a week together. You have a key to my apartment. But we've never defined what this is, and I'm wondering if that's fair to you." Trevor was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "Are you asking what I want or what you want?" "Both. Either. I don't know." "I'll go first then." He turned to face her fully. "I care about you. A lot. I would like to call you my girlfriend if you're ready for that. But I also understand if you're not. The only thing that's not okay is you staying with me out of obligation or convenience. I want you to be with me because you actually want to be, not because it's easier than being alone. I do want to be with you. That's the scary part. I'm starting to need you around, and I don't know if I trust that feeling." "Why is need scary?" "Because the last time I needed someone, they used it against me. They made me depend on them and then exploited that dependence. I'm not going to do that." Trevor reached for her hand. "But I can't prove that to you. You have to decide to trust me, and I know that's hard after what you went through. I'm willing to keep taking things slow if that's what you need. But I also need to know you're working towards something, not just running out the clock until you feel nothing." The honesty hurt because it was true. Part of her had been running out the clock, waiting for Trevor to reveal some fatal flaw that would justify keeping him at a distance. "I don't want to lose what we have," Natasha said. "Then don't. We don't have to change anything if you're not ready. But at some point, you need to decide if you're going to let someone in or if you're going to keep everyone at a distance forever. That's not about me specifically. That's about you figuring out what kind of life you want." They sat in silence for several minutes. Baron, sensing tension, climbed onto the couch between them, resting his head on Natasha's lap. "I need time to think about this," she finally said. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." They finished the movie, but the easy comfort between them had shifted slightly. Not broken, but acknowledging what had been unspoken for months. After Trevor left, Natasha called Dr. Chen's emergency line. It wasn't a true emergency, but she needed to talk through this before her next scheduled appointment. Dr. Chen answered, and they talked for 30 minutes about fear and trust and the difference between protecting yourself and isolating yourself. "You've done incredible work rebuilding your life," Dr. Chen said. But at some point, healing from betrayal means being willing to trust again, even though you know trust can be broken. That's vulnerability. That's courage. And it's scary as hell. What if I'm wrong about him? What if you're right about him? The question flipped everything. Natasha had been so focused on the risk of being wrong, of getting hurt again, that she hadn't considered the risk of being right and pushing away someone good out of fear. Over the weekend, Natasha took Baron on a long solo hike. No Trevor, no distractions, just her and her thoughts and miles of trail. She thought about what her life looked like now versus a year ago. She had rebuilt everything from scratch. She had a career she loved, friends she trusted, a dog who adored her, and a person who showed up consistently without demanding anything she wasn't ready to give. She thought about her ex-fiancé and Brianna, still trying to apologize their way to redemption. She felt nothing for them beyond distant acknowledgement that they existed somewhere in the world, working through their own issues without any involvement from her. That was closure. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but complete indifference to their existence. She had closed that chapter completely. The question now was whether she was ready to start a new chapter or if she wanted to keep living in the interlude, safe and alone. By the time she reached the summit, breathing hard from the climb, she knew her answer. She texted Trevor, "Can we talk tomorrow? In person?" His response came quickly, "Of course. Your place or mine?" "Yours. I'll bring Baron." The next day she drove to Trevor's apartment with Baron in the back seat and her heart racing. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say, but the words kept rearranging themselves in her mind. Trevor opened the door before she knocked, as if he'd been watching for her. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. His apartment was tidy, comfortable, with photos of his family on the walls and a dog bed in the corner that he'd bought specifically for Baron's visits. Evidence of a life fully lived, not a life waiting for someone else to complete it. They sat on the couch, Baron immediately claiming the dog bed. "I've been thinking about what you said," Natasha started. "About choosing to trust and working towards something instead of running out the clock." "Okay. I realized I've been treating you like you're temporary. Like any day you're going to reveal yourself as someone else entirely. And that's not fair to you. It's also not fair to me because I've been denying myself something good out of fear." Trevor waited, letting her find her words. "I want to try this for real. Not casually. Not with one foot out the door. I want to call you my boyfriend and see where it goes. But I need you to understand that I'm still scared. I'm still working through stuff. And I might need patience when I get weird about trust." "I can do patience," Trevor said, a smile breaking across his face. "I'm good at patience. Ask any of my clients. I'm serious. I'm not going to be the perfect girlfriend. I'm going to question things sometimes. I'm going to need reassurance. I'm going to be a work in progress. We're all works in progress. That's what makes us human." Trevor reached for her hand. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be willing to try." "I'm willing to try." He pulled her into a hug and Natasha let herself relax into it, breathing in his familiar scent, feeling the solid reality of his presence. This was scary. This was risky. This was choosing to be vulnerable after vulnerability had nearly destroyed her. But it was also choosing to live fully instead of just surviving carefully. When they pulled apart, Trevor said, "So I'm your boyfriend now?" "Apparently. And you're my girlfriend? If you want to put a label on it." "I do. Very much." He grinned. "Can I change your contact name in my phone to girlfriend? Or is that too much?" "That's too much." "What about just adding a heart emoji?" "One heart emoji. Nothing excessive." "Deal." They spent the rest of the afternoon together, not doing anything special, just existing in the same space with a new understanding between them. Baron napped peacefully, unbothered by the shift in human dynamics. Later, driving home, Natasha felt lighter. Not because having a boyfriend solved anything, but because she had made a choice instead of letting fear make choices for her. She had closed the door on her past completely. She had built a life that belonged entirely to her. And now she was opening a door to her future, not knowing exactly what lay behind it but willing to find out. That was closure. That was healing. That was moving forward. And it felt exactly right. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, Natasha stood in her corner office on the 15th floor, looking out over Seattle. Rain streaked the windows, but the view was still spectacular. Behind her, her title gleamed on a nameplate: Natasha Williams, Vice President of Western Operations. VP. The promotion had come 3 months ago, another step in a career trajectory that had exceeded every expectation she'd set for herself. Her team was thriving. Her initiatives had positioned the company as a leader in their industry. She had built something substantial, something entirely her own. Baron lay in his bed by the window, graying around the muzzle now but still loyal, still watching her with those intelligent eyes that had saved her life all those years ago. "Ready to go home?" she asked him. His tail thumped in response. They walked through the office together. Employees greeted her by name, some stopping to pet Baron, who had become something of an office mascot on the days Natasha brought him to work. She had earned respect here, built relationships based on competence and integrity. Grace met her at the elevator. "Don't forget, book club is tomorrow night. It's my turn to host. I'll be there." "What are we reading again?" "That memoir about the woman who quit her corporate job to start a bakery. Should be interesting." They rode down together discussing the book. Grace was still her closest friend in Seattle, the person who had witnessed her transformation from broken to rebuilt to thriving. In the parking garage, Natasha loaded Baron into her car. She had upgraded 6 months ago to something more practical for hiking adventures and road trips with Trevor. The back seat had a special cover to protect against muddy paw prints. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor, "Running late at the clinic. Can you pick up dinner?" "Sure. Thai or Italian?" "Thai. I'll be home by 7. Home." His apartment had become their apartment 8 months ago when it finally made sense to stop maintaining 2 separate places. They had moved carefully, maintaining individual space within shared space, respecting each other's need for independence. It worked. They worked. Not because everything was perfect but because they had both learned how to communicate, how to respect boundaries, how to be together without losing themselves. Natasha drove through familiar streets, Baron's head resting on the center console. She thought about where she had been 2 years ago, standing in a wedding dress, holding a phone full of evidence, watching her entire future crumble. That version of herself felt like a different person. Younger. More naive. Less certain of who she was and what she deserved. She had grown into someone stronger, someone who knew her worth wasn't determined by relationship status or other people's opinions. Someone who could be happy alone and also happy with someone, because she understood those were different kinds of happiness that didn't negate each other. At home, she set up dinner while Baron drank from his water bowl. Trevor arrived 15 minutes later, tired but smiling, pulling her into a hug that smelled like antiseptic and dog shampoo. "Long day?" she asked. "Emergency surgery on a retriever who ate a sock. He's fine, but it took longer than expected." They ate at the small dining table they'd bought together, talking about their days. Trevor told her about the puppy training class he was teaching at the clinic. Natasha told him about the client presentation that had gone better than expected. It was ordinary. Comfortable. Real. After dinner they walked Baron through the neighborhood. The rain had stopped, leaving everything smelling clean and fresh. Other couples passed them, some with dogs, some with children. Natasha watched them without envy or longing, just observation. "Patricia is visiting next month," Natasha said. "She wants to finally meet you properly. I'm ready for the best friend interrogation." "It's not an interrogation. It's more like an inspection." "That's not better." Natasha laughed. "She'll like you. She already does, based on what I've told her. She just needs to see for herself that you're real." "Fair enough." They walked in comfortable silence until Baron stopped to investigate a particularly interesting tree. Trevor used the pause to look at Natasha seriously. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "Should I be worried?" "No. Maybe. I don't know." He took a breath. "I want you to know that I'm happy with where we are. I'm not trying to rush anything. But I also want you to know that I see a future with you. Not next month or next year necessarily, but eventually. And I want to make sure you see that too, or at least could see that, because I don't want to be investing in something that has a built-in expiration date." Natasha felt her heart rate pick up, but not from panic. From the weight of being asked to look forward instead of constantly looking back. "I can see a future," she said carefully. "Not the same future I saw 2 years ago when I thought I knew what my life was supposed to look like. But a different future. A better one actually. With me in it? With you in it." Trevor smiled, relieved. "That's all I needed to know. Everything else can figure itself out in its own time." They walked back home, hands linked, Baron trotting between them. Inside the apartment, Natasha made tea while Trevor queued up the documentary they'd been watching in pieces all week. Her phone buzzed. An email from her father. "Thinking about you today. 2 years since you dodged the biggest bullet of your life. Proud of everything you've built since then. Love, Dad." Natasha stared at the email, realizing she hadn't actually remembered the anniversary. The wedding that didn't happen had been exactly 2 years ago today, and she had been so focused on her current life that the date had passed without significance. That felt like the ultimate closure. The day that had once defined her trauma was now just another Tuesday. She replied, "Thanks, Dad. I'm proud of me too. Love you." Settling onto the couch with Trevor, Baron sprawled across both their laps. Natasha reflected on the journey that had brought her here. The devastation of betrayal. The strength it took to walk away. The courage required to rebuild. The vulnerability of choosing to trust again. "What are you thinking about?" Trevor asked, noticing her distant expression. "Just how different my life is now compared to what I thought it would be. 2 years ago, I thought I knew exactly what my future looked like. I was wrong, but I'm not sad about being wrong. No regrets. None. Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I wish I had trusted Baron's instincts sooner. Could have saved myself a lot of money on wedding deposits." Trevor laughed. "Baron is officially the smartest one in this relationship." As if understanding, Baron lifted his head and looked at them both with what could only be described as satisfaction. The documentary played, rain started again outside, and Natasha felt completely at peace. She had learned that happy endings weren't about finding someone to complete you. They were about becoming complete on your own and choosing to share that completeness with someone who respected it. She had learned that revenge wasn't about punishing the people who hurt you. It was about building something so good, so fulfilling, that their absence became irrelevant. She had learned that closure didn't require confrontation or forgiveness or any grand gesture. Sometimes it just meant waking up one day and realizing you no longer cared. Most importantly, she had learned to trust herself. Her instincts. Her judgment. Her ability to know what she needed and ask for it without apology. That was the real happy ending. Not the boyfriend or the career or the apartment with the perfect view. Those were all wonderful, but they weren't what made her happy. What made her happy was knowing that if all of it disappeared tomorrow, she would still be okay. She would still be herself, complete and whole and capable of building again. Later that night, lying in bed with Trevor asleep beside her and Baron snoring from his bed in the corner, Natasha thought about the woman in the wedding dress, holding evidence of betrayal, making the hardest choice of her life. She wanted to tell that version of herself that it would be okay. Better than okay. That walking away from that altar would lead to everything she didn't know she needed. That the pain would fade. That she would build something beautiful from the ruins. But that woman didn't need to be told. She had already proven she was strong enough to save herself. The rest was just details. Natasha closed her eyes, Baron's steady breathing like a lullaby, and let herself drift into sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. But tonight, she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with exactly who she was supposed to be with, living exactly the life she had chosen for herself. And that was the happiest ending of all.